Today we're going to resume with day 4 of the hallway project. Last time on day 3 when we talked, we said that you were going to go ahead and start putting in your horizontal ceiling tile lines. They were going to be smaller in the back and get bigger as they go off the page coming toward you down the hallway. You were going to base these sizes off of the lockers and doors and doorways and other features in the hallway that you had put in on day 2. We said that it may help to sight get not every single ceiling tile, but maybe sight maybe one toward close to you, maybe one toward the middle, one toward the end, to kind of get an idea to how to create that sense of depth. We also talked to you about ceiling tile lines. We said that they usually will be the middle 2 tiles. There's usually 6-hole tiles across. In my example, I messed up. I had 5 tiles here, so I had to use 3 because I had to have the same number of tiles over here as over here. Some of you guys did not put anything in your floors in your checkup on day 3. So remember, the minimum you have to have on that floor, you have to have at least some horizontal lines to make it look like it was poured. But there are several of these hallways that do have 4 or 5 tiles across, and in the courtyard hallway there are probably more like 12, which are a lot. But if you don't want to do all those tiles, you could just do some narrow horizontal strips. Just make sure each section gets smaller as it goes back. Now today we're going to start working with brickwork. Okay, before we do any connecting to bricks. So far the only bricks that we've connected so far were maybe the top 2 bricks to help you get doors or doorways established, maybe the 5th brick line down for lockers. Of course you need to count, not every hallway is exactly the same, but they're pretty close. We told you that there would be 2 bricks above this door frame, so that might be helpful if you decide to go ahead and put a door frame in, whether you had just a hallway that was crossing or whether you had a mid-back wall and you had a hall that continued where you could see the left and the right side. You're still going to have 2 bricks above the door. Okay, 2 bricks above the doorway here, 2 bricks above the doorway here. Now, before you connect any more brick lines, what you should do is one more time, go back and double check. Count your tick marks or your spaces. If you had 12 bricks, you would have 11 tick marks, and you should have the same on both sides. If you had 13 bricks, you should have 12 tick marks and 13 spaces. Double check your brick lines here. Double check your brick lines near the end of your paper to make sure they match up. And then before you start connecting anything, back here, pay attention to how level these lines are. If you discover that you have a brick really close to the ceiling here, but this one's really way down, you may want to go back and redistribute those. Just make sure you have the same number, but make sure at least the top 2 are even, so that, because it'll be really, really obvious when you go to connect them if they are crooked. So go back and double check the number of bricks you have on your tick marks, and then make sure that at least above these doorways that they are even, at least up here. They won't be as noticeable here, but try to make them even if you can, just in case they're not. Now what you're going to start doing is you're going to start connecting all of your brick lines, but remember, you're going to skip when you go from the first brick line to the first brick line way over here. You're going to skip doorways, recessed doorways. You're going to skip if it's going through a door. Obviously, you're going to skip if there's a door flush on the wall. If it's a locker, you're not going to draw that brick line all the way through your locker. Why go back and erase all that work? So just make sure your ruler is lined up. You might want to count your tick marks, like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Double check that before you connect it. Okay, and then you can go all the way from the back hallway to here. Now, recessed hallways are different. Some of you guys on your hallway worksheets, you kind of did what I told you not to do. Some of you guys said, hey, my bricks, I know that they angle here, so I'm just going to make them all parallel. Well, what happens is all of a sudden they're all crashing into the floor at weird funky angles. Remember that if you have a if you have a mid-back wall and you have a wall on the left and the right that go further back, every single line that's here, they're not going to be parallel. If they were parallel, they would crash into the floor at an angle, a lot like what we showed you in this terrible example here. These brick lines that are horizontal, okay, they are going to line up with each brick line. So as you make this recessed hall back here, remember that this is going to be flat if you've got one of these. But if you have walls that are continuing, so if it's this wall continuing on down the hallway, every brick line is going to line up on the brick lines in the front, every single one of them, without exception. Okay, so keep that in mind. if you go back in and do these hallways that are way, way, way in the back. Okay? Now, a couple of things. If you have a hallway that doesn't have, you know, a second back hallway to it, if you just have a, you know, you've got the back wall, and then all of a sudden there's a hallway here, and there's a wall back here, but there's no left or right wall, kind of like this view right here, you're just going to have a simple horizontal line that's going to be a little higher than the doorway, and that's going to show where the floor ends, and all of a sudden there's just a brick wall that goes on back. So if you make these bricks, there are going to be bricks. Even though in the picture they're hard to see, there's bricks there. I still want you to draw the bricks like what we did here. Even in this little back wall, you're going to draw bricks. You're not going to leave it blank. A good example, for instance, on this hallway drawing that someone did, you're going to see here is their back wall that they used. This is a hallway that crosses back here. This is facing the media center, and this is the floor line. And what I want you to notice is that they're going to put brick lines in here. These bricks are going to be a little smaller than these. How small do they need to be? That's up to you. What you want to make sure is that these bricks are smaller than these. You want to make sure these lines are lighter than these in the end. Right now you're making all your lines light. But you want to make sure that you don't put 30 bricks here if you only have 12 here. You don't want to put 12 bricks from here to here if there's 12 bricks from here to here, because guess what? There should be 12 bricks from here to wherever the ceiling would end here. So just make sure that there's a little less than there are here and that they're a little bit smaller. And also don't leave that space dead. You know, I think now they have like a television set at the end of one of those hallways, but put something there to make it interesting. Okay? So you're going to connect all of your horizontal lines. If you're doing a recessed hallway, okay, we showed you that right here. If you're doing a recessed hallway, any of those recessed hallways, those lines that are quote-unquote horizontal, okay, they don't look horizontal on the side of going down, but this part of the wall is facing you directly. This will be horizontal. This is going in. These are those recessed doorways. We had some examples like right here. Like here's a recessed hallway. Look at these bricks. These brick lines are perfectly horizontal. These weren't. These are where we're connecting our math. Notice that the floor line is right here that creates an angle. Our ceiling line there creates an angle. If there was a ceiling tile line that was going into this recessed hallway, we would go ahead and draw the line in, but there isn't in this particular drawing. But, you know, we would do that. We're not going to worry about small details today. We're just going to try to get brick lines connected as best as we can. Now, as far as vertical brick lines, remember we said that they're going to be smaller and they're going to get larger as they come toward you. Make sure that your bricks don't look like they're 7 feet long in the back. So you may want to kind of, not sight, but you might want to like say, okay, how lightly put a line and say, okay, I think my brick's going to be this big here, this big in the middle, this big in the back, and just kind of look at it and use that to guide you. And when you do your bricks, remember when we did the hallway sheet, we just did the odd row. We did 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and you would do, you know, 11. Or 13 if you have 13 of them. Do all those vertical ones. Make sure that when you do that, that your ruler is butted up either with the top of your page or the bottom of your page. Some of you guys have not been butting up your ruler, and so some of your lines are leaning. If you have time to fix that before you do all this brick work, please do that. Butt that up so that your lines are vertical. But that otherwise your walls will look like they're leaning in. So make sure that you do maybe the odd row first, and then after you do the odd row, just kind of find the middle of one of those bricks, make a mark, and then just butt up your ruler and just do the even rows every other one. Now, for walls that are facing you head on, like this back wall, okay, middle back wall, they should be the same length. They should be. So just do a little math and try to make it work out where it's even. Okay, whatever makes it even. And then whatever you do on your top row, you can alternate your other rows and take care of it from there. In here, it might be nice to break it up so it's not so predictable. You might want to base this off of what's here, okay, to make sure it looks logical. If you want to go ahead and put these brick lines in, if you have a recessed doorway where you see the door, and I want you to have at least one of those, most of you, if you have recessed hallways. I think the courtyard hallway doesn't have any. But make sure that these lines, they're not going to perfectly line up with these brick lines, but you take your ruler and you kind of use it as a guideline and say, okay, if this is my line and this is my line, it has to follow in here somewhere. It has to kind of follow along. Pretend like there's a fake vanishing point back here if you have to. And if this line continued, it should stay in the same brick line all the way down. This line should stay in the same brick line here all the way down. These are the ones that are horizontal. These will have a weird angle. These will have to kind of make up. whereas these parts are going straight to your math. Okay, same way with the bottom of your door. You have to kind of swivel your ruler out and kind of swivel it and make sure that this line, if it kept on going, it would stay in the same brick line. If it's starting here and it's angling way up into here, you know this angle is completely off. Okay. Now, a couple other things to help you. If you do door frames, you can add those in. These will be just vertical. These, again, they won't be perfectly parallel to the door. They're going to have a slight slant, so use a fake vanishing point. It's okay if you have multiple fake vanishing points for different things, because we don't have a true vanishing point in this particular drawing. You can do that. If you have windows, like in the courtyard hallway, I have a picture here somewhere. Okay, like here's the courtyard hallway. Let me wait till my camera quits freezing so that you can see what I've done. Okay, here we go. If you have windows, like in the courtyard hallway, some people have tried to put columns in their hallway when there's no columns in your hallway. By the way, make sure that you only draw a column if you have the courtyard hallway. And we talked about how to do that in a previous video. But all these window lines, they're going to go. Use your brick lines to help you, but you will have to add some thickness to them eventually. Like this window should be wider than this window. This window may not be as wide because maybe the brick covers it up, so you can't quite see all of that window. But logically, this one would be bigger than this one. Okay, and you will have to add some thicknesses in. I have an example of someone who did a courtyard hallway, and you can see that they did a pretty nice job. Notice how these look like they taper as they go further and further away. We're not going to worry about details today. We'll do details tomorrow. We'll talk about that. But today we're going to talk about mostly trying to get in brick lines, horizontal as well as vertical, talking about maybe even getting windows for doors possibly. If you have this courtyard hallway, notice that there's a nice frame in here. There's a frame in the back. I think your picture has a Coca-Cola machine here. Get rid of that. You can make it look just like this side. Just make sure your doors are the same size. To make this little lobby in the courtyard hallway, all you do is take your ruler, lay it down on this wall line, and just continue a little line in. It can be really shallow. It does not have to be really deep, and it'll make it look like you've got a little lobby here, and it's really easy to do. Just look at the picture and just make sure that your windows are the same size as each other. But don't worry about details today. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we want to talk to you about today. When you're doing lockers, you can now go in and make sure, if you haven't already, use the brick lines to secure the top of your lockers. If you want to create a frame for your locker, it'd be the same way as you did when you made frames for your doorways in the hallway practice sheet. Just remember that these lines are not technically parallel to each other. They're based off of these brick lines, but they eventually would taper and come together. So you can do the tops of your lockers if you want, and windows as well. And one more thing. In some of these hallways, there are no bricks above the lockers. I think we mentioned this in a previous video, but there are bricks right before the locker start. Even up here, there's 2 bricks here. There's bricks before and there's bricks after. We told you to do the math, so it would have to be there. So I give you a choice on far as how you draw these. You can choose to draw them either with bricks completely filled up above the lockers. That's totally fine. I'll let you do that even if that's not what it's like in the picture. Or if you want to be more true to life, you can just leave the space above the lockers empty, but you will still have brick lines that are on the end caps of your lockers, and technically there should have been one here. These lockers should not have went straight to the hall. They should have stopped right here on this edge, but you get the idea. So from the original pictures you can see that. Don't worry about locks or locker slits today or any other details. Let's talk about that tomorrow when we have a little more time, but go ahead and start working on your brick lines, the horizontal ones, the ones that angle that should be horizontal, the vertical, making sure that you have 2 nice even brick lines above doorways. Work on all those things. If you didn't finish your floor, go ahead and get that in. Work on windows if you had windows in your courtyard hallway. Work on those things, and then on your column, one last point here. So remember, all these bricks will be horizontal, just like in recessed doorways, but all of these brick lines, they will angle inward, and again, you base them off of the other brick lines. If you look right here, you're going to see that you've got flat lines on the front of these columns, but all of these lines, they don't line up perfectly with these, but you can use these to base the angle of the front of the columns. So I think that's enough for today. Work on that, and we'll talk to you tomorrow about the final stages of the hallway project.